Hello and welcome to the Racing Postcast, proudly sponsored by Unibet. Once again, we've got your Saturday sort of tips, insight and everything you need to know for every ITV race over the next half an hour or so. On this show, we will be focusing on Scotland's biggest flat race. It's the Ayr Gold Cup, the big race up in Scotland, one of five live ITV races up there. We've also got 4 races to focus on at Newbury, headlined by the Mill Reef, where all eyes will be on that 80-1 debut winner into the sky. Just how good will he be after the tables perched him this week? I'm your host, James Stevens, and joining me on the panel, we have our betting editor, Keith Melrose, handicapper Jonny Pearson, and Unibet's Ed Nicholson. Now, we've got a little treat for you before we get stuck into Saturday's action. We have got so much big racing coming up on the before the flat season finishes, not just in Britain, but in France with the Arc, the Breeders' Cup in America, and of course the Melbourne Cup in Australia. So I've challenged our top tipsters to give us 2 autumn aces, 2 horses in the Ante-post markets to follow. Jonny, you love this racing around the world. What are your 2 gems for us?
We're going to go around the world, as you say. We're going to start in America. We've got Breeders' Cup. We're going to go in notable speech in the Breeders' Cup Mile. He was 3rd in the race last year. He had, he's not been 100% this year, but he should have won in France. He went and won at Woodbine at the weekend. Charlie Appleby's won the race 3 of the last 4 years. Ran well last year, and I can see him running. I think he probably has the best chance of winning the race out of a lot of them. And the second one's going to be in the Melbourne Cup, where a backed horse in the Arc last year called Dedius. He ran all right, but nothing spectacular. He's been purchased for 1.3 million. He's now in Australia and called Sir Dedius. He's second favourite for the race, but I think he'll get the 2 miles, no issues. But he's got plenty of speed. He ran over a mile last time, running really well, finishing really strongly. Arguably should have won the race. He runs again Saturday morning, actually. I wouldn't be backing him even money for the race on Saturday morning, but he should run well again. I'd like to see him shortening up even further, and I think it's a good bet for the Melbourne Cup each way.
Okay, so notable speech at 7-2 for the Breeders' Cup Mile, and then the Melbourne Cup just a few days later. So Dedius at 8-1. Keith, what have you got for us?
Well, sometimes you have horses that you just really fancy Ante-post, and sometimes you just see horses you think, well, I'm not certain I fancy this as such, but I am certain this is going to go off quite a bit shorter. And my 2 are sort of from the second camp, really. I can see Sosie going off a lot shorter for the Arc. Thought it was a real trial race, that one he had when he was second in the Fla, wasn't it? And he'd obviously shown he was as good as ever when he'd won those 2 Group 1s in the spring, and he was 4th in the Arc last year. He's just getting lined up for the same race again. And yes, he's not a superstar, but he is a very good horse in a pretty poor Arc. And I think you can get him at 10, 11 to 1 at the moment. Would not be remotely surprised if he was 5 to 1, 11 to 2 on the day. It's such an open race. And similar sort of comments apply to my second, which after I watched the Sprint Cup, I thought, well, that's kind of Blue's going to win that champion sprint again, isn't he? Because he's a slow developing family who've all won that same race. Deacon Blue's in that family, and the Tin Man. They're all those sorts of horses that develop slowly and win this race. In fact, when Kind of Blue was placed, or was he 4th maybe in the Commonwealth Cup last year, I immediately said, well, that'll win the 2025 champion sprint. Turned out he won the 2024 one. But he's coming back to form, clearly, having finished second in the Sprint Cup. And he's currently, I think, about 8 to 1 again. Lazat might turn up and he might go off 6s, but if Lazat doesn't run, then he might go off 4 to 1, 7 to 2 favourite. And I just see those being really good positions to hold. Even though they're not like horses that are massively exciting me as horses like that's going to win, I think you'll back those horses today and you'll be in a strong position come the day.
Yeah, I like your thinking, Keith, especially there with Kind of Blue. That's Keith's selection. Sosie in the Arc at 10 to 1 with Unibet. Kind of Blue at 7 to 1. I've chucked in 2 myself. I'm going to take on Keith. I'm going to hope that it's finally Japan's year in the Arc Croydon Odd. This horse has a little bit of a different profile to the typical Japanese horses. That dam is actually British bred. And I think if conditions aren't bottomless testing, which we never know at Longchamp, I think 9 to 1's about a horse who's clearly very talented and clearly to me looks the 3-year-old to watch in the race. And the other one, Cinderella's Dream in the Breeders' Cup Fillies and Mares at 4 to 1 with Unibet. I think that's a great price. She was only just beaten the race last year. Unlucky. He's already a Group 1 winner in Britain this year. The whole season's been geared around a return to the Breeders' Cup. It's got a bounce back from a disappointing run last time, but 4 to 1 looks a great bet for me. And Ed, you boys have been busy pricing up just about everything. You've even priced up the Unibet Greatwood, I see.
Yeah, I think Keith wrote about it, saying that we're one of the best companies in the industry at pricing events up early. And just before I came on, I made sure the Breeders' Cup prices were back up. We did suspend, but they're up now. We've got prices for the rest of the season, the international races, and as you quite rightly say, the Unibet Greatwood, which kicks off the Unibet Road to Cheltenham, is already priced up. So go to unibet.co.uk/racing for all the latest odds.
Yeah, not too long to go now. Sorry if we're getting a bit excited way too early. Let's go to the flat action, and the pick of it on Saturday is at Ayr, where the ground, as it stands at the time of recording on Thursday afternoon, is good to soft, good in places. And the big race is the 3:35, the Ladbrokes Ayr Gold Cup. It's Scotland's biggest flat race, and your favourite at 5-1 is Northern Ticker. True Tribes, what a summer it's been for him already. He's 13-2. Ain't Nobody, James Doyle rides for the first time, 15-2. Strike Red at 11s. Hammer the Hammer and Alpha Kelnick are 12-1, along with Flash Harry. Comanche Falls, 14s, along with Puro Sanye and Twilight Calls. And Moran at 16-1. Jordan Electrics, 18s, along with Run Boy Run. Plenty more on the betting. Keith, our Scotsman on the show, our sprint specialist on the show. Talk us through the Ayr Gold Cup.
Possibly the hardest race of the year these days, now that the National's not what it was. It's such a hard race, and you could tell me if you've got one of these 25, I would tell you haven't thought hard enough, because there are so many interesting horses. And I almost wish it literally was a roulette wheel, because you can bet obviously on spreads of numbers on the roulette wheel. And I just look at that neighbourhood in the draw here of 6 down to about 12, and I like most of them. Run Boy Run's in there, Solar Acclaim's in there, Hammer the Hammer, who was all over for the Stewards' Cup, but I don't think liked Goodwood. Badry, not so fussed. Jordan Electrics was my sort of flyer for the race coming in. I saw him run at York in August, and then in the Portland, and said, if they turn him out in the Ayr Gold Cup, he could have a bit of a chance. Fahrenheit 7's an interesting one, moving to Robert Cowell, potentially a positive yard switch when it comes to sprinters at least. And then Milford, another one who was second at the Shergar Cup, and you know, he's twice the price, I think, of a horse he finished in front of at the Shergar Cup. That neighbourhood is really strong, and there's a lot of pace there too. That's the good thing. You know, Hammer's a pacey horse, and there's Jordan Electric is a pacey horse. So there's going to be a congregation of pace in that neighbourhood. There's a whole bunch of interesting horses that are all 12-1 plus. That's where I'll be focusing my attention. You can come back to me to pin me down on one. Jordan Electrics was maybe my sort of the one that I thought was my smart Alec bet for the Ayr Gold Cup. So maybe if you pin me down on one, it's him. But I'll tell you what I'm actually doing. I'm spreading all over that neighbourhood, because I think one of them might win it.
Fascinating insight. I like the idea of neighbourhoods, Keith. You're a neighbourhood you want to be on side. But Jordan Electric's potentially just the one Keith is just signed to at this point in time. Ed, huge Saturday, big race. What have you got for us?
Yeah, well, first of all, as you would expect, we're going at least one extra place here. One extra place at the moment. Look on Saturday to see if that is doubled. Really difficult race. I mean, I love these sprints as much as anyone else. Probably not as much as Keith, but maybe as much as everyone else. And I think Two Tribes goes to war again. And I think, having run in the Stewards' Cup, won that, he's now off a rating of 103, having won that off 89. Got a good draw. I think high stall draws has done well at over 6 furlongs in the Ayr Gold Cup in recent years, and drawn 18. He has got to improve again. But that fourth last time out at York off the similar mark, exactly the same mark, suggests that he's up to still competing at this kind of level off this kind of handicap mark. I back in the day, it was very difficult to win the Stewards' Cup and the Ayr Gold Cup still is. But I think Locksong, I remember back in the 90s, and Coastal Bluff might have done it, I think, off the top of my head. But quite a few have run well in both races in the last few years. He has got to go up in weight from that Stewards' Cup victory, but in such an open race, I know the horse. He won well at Goodwood, so I'm going to go for Two Tribes again at around about 9-10-1. But it is a really open race, as Keith said.
Two Tribes. We've got a bit of nostalgia and a music reference in the very first go, Ed. Well played to you. We just as we were expecting. Jonny, what's your fancy here?
I can see the case for Two Tribes, and as Ed said, you know, you look at the draw in recent history, and you want to be higher rather than lower. You know, nothing's come from lower than 12 since 2017. So that would be a concern about anything drawn low to me. And I'm going for a horse that finished 10th in the race last year and finished behind Two Tribes, second behind Two Tribes of Goodwood, actually. And that's Strike Red. If he finished 10th last year, it might not sound great, but he was drawn 6th that day. And the next horse drawn lower than 12 came 14th. He was clearly on the wrong side of the track. The winner was 20, second was 19, third was 24th. You don't want to be low here, I don't think. And I keep coming back to Strike Red. Okay, he's up a couple more pounds than he was this time last year, but I think they would have had this race in mind all season. And I think he is going to run a huge race and draw 20.
Okay, Strike Red is a selection for Johnny. Let's move on to the 3 o'clock at Ayr. This is the Ladbrokes Get Rewarded with Ladbucks. Firth of Clyde Stakes, really competitive one here for the 2-year-olds. And your favourite at 5-2 is Coming Attraction for Roger Varian. There's a royal runner in here with Lightning Polka 11-2. Argentine Tango 15-2. Dandana ridden by O'Sheen Murphy 17-2, along with Mood Queen and Rogue Attraction. 9-1 is Catching the Moon. India Love 11s. Arla Fernandez 16s. And we'll go 18-1 bar. Let's go straight back to you, Johnny. Firth of Clyde, who wins it?
I mean, Argentine Tango's got the best form in the race. If you ignore his last 2 runs in Group 2 level, you'd be all over him. But, I mean, he has had those 2 runs, which is a concern. The ground's a slight worry. He's not raced on. I don't think he's raced on softer than good previously, and it's likely to be good to softer, the best at Ayr. But I think you can try and make a case for any of the others, but you'd be making a case for improvement rather than proven form. And if you put a line through those last 2 runs, for me, he's got the best form in there and the most likely winner.
15-2 is Argentine Tango. What's your selection here, Ed?
I was at Chester when Coming Attraction won, and I spoke to the jockey afterwards, and he was very impressed, Jack Mitchell. I was very impressed. I noticed that Coming Attraction has already been entered for 2 further group races, which probably won't run in now because they were only a week away. But both the Rockfell and the Cheveley Park entry suggest that they think this one's useful. I think Coming Attraction could be better than the rest here. That was a conditions race at Chester, so it does have to step up. But that was really impressive. And I think 5-2 might be a little bit short, actually, in terms of price, because she does take on some nice horses here. But, Ray Dawson has been riding really well for Roger Varian over the last few Saturdays, been booting home the winners. He's in excellent form. Roger Varian always seems to be in good form. And Coming Attraction is in form, 2 wins from 3 runs and is improving. So that'll be the selection in what is a tricky race. We are going extra place here, almost like a handicap. So, whatever you fancy after a few runs has got a chance. But I was really quite impressed by the way that Coming Attraction won at Chester.
Certainly looks the right favourite. Have to agree with you on that front, Ed. Keith, what's your view on the race and the favourite as we've touched on Coming Attraction?
Well, it's a race where the standard certain form isn't all that high, and right enough, it's a Group 3 for 2-year-old fillies. Your Racing Post rating standard is low hundreds, so that's the sort of level you need to be at to win this race. There's a few that could match up to that level, and Coming Attraction, having had a few goes, has got as much claims as many. But I watched Lightning Polka's debut, and it very, very nearly set off the good horse alarm to me. That was a 40 grand maiden at the Sprint Cup meeting, so a valuable race. And you look at the connections of the horses that go down there. You've got Obeyed, you've got Taylor Bloodstock, you've got the Bamfords, you've got other sort of prominent owners in that race. And she made them look a bit ordinary, to be quite honest. She looks a little bit like a sort of 2-year-old Pocket Rocket to me. She looks quite small on the television, but her dam was a back-end 2-year-old. A well-known sort of royal family, this one. She was a back-end 2-year-old, was light music, and so I don't worry about any sort of more testing conditions. Might have been soft side when she won at good Haydock. But there are once raced maiden winners coming into group races, and there are once raced maiden winners coming into group races, and this is one of the better ones because it's a good maiden. She won it well. And she just looks like the sort of horse you want to make hay with this back end. So I thought Lightning Polka was a really attractive one in this.
That's an 11-2 chance for Ed Walker and Kieran Schumacher. Well, we're going to have a look through the first 3 races on the card at Ayr, all live on ITV. A very quick spin through. Those races are 1:15 at Ayr. That's the Ladbrokes free bet at Ayr handicap. Over a mile. The 150 at Ayr is the Ladbrokes Big Football Bet Builder Boost Doonside Cup Stakes. This is a listed race over a mile 2, where Amarak is the short-priced 13-8 favourite, and the 225, which is the Ayr Silver Cup, of course. A good warm-up for the big one itself. Let's start with you, Ed. What are selections in those 3 races?
Yeah, the 115, I like a horse in form coming into the back-end handicaps. I like David Amira in handicaps full stop. So I'm going to take a bit of a leap of faith and go for a 14-1 shot here in Duke's Command, who won off 85 last time out. He's up £5 to 90. But I like the way Duke's Command did it last time, coming into form at the right time. Also, relatively lightly raced, only had 9 runs on the turf, won a couple and been placed once. So I still think there's improvement to come. So Duke's Command, soft ground would be an issue, but good to soft should be okay. The Doonside Cup, I think Almeric's one of the best bets of the weekend. Lightly raced, I would imagine they've been waiting for the softer ground conditions, and might have been some problems as well, because we haven't seen Almeric since the Fielding Stakes. But Boarding Murphy, good to soft, is entered in the Champion Stakes, got every chance of winning this en route to that. And finally, the Silver Cup. Having said that high draws are what you want, I'm just going to go for a horse drawn stall 1 in this, only because I think you get a good price. Silky Wilkie came second in the Gold Cup last year, I think, was it? And is on a much lower handicap weight mark, but came back to form last time, which is significant. So I'm going to take a chance at a big price. The market might be against Silky Wilkie drawn 1 as well, but did come back and has got some good back form at higher marks. So Silky Wilkie in the Silver Cup at 225. And we've got plenty of offers on those 3 races as well. Money back 2nd or 3rd on the 115, and also Super Boost on the Doonside Cup.
Thank you very much, Ed. Silky Wilkie is 18-1 for that Ayr Silver Cup. Keith, we know you can't ignore the big sprints. What do you like in the Silver Cup?
Funnily enough, I said Jordan Electric was sort of my smart Alex shout on the Gold Cup, and maybe that just gave him the edge if you pinned me down to 1. I had a smart Alec one for the Silver Cup in quite a while ago, and it was Silky Wilkie. I don't like the draw in 1. I don't like the draw in 1 because it's right on the wing, and we've got 3 days of racing coming at Ayr on relative. It's not going to be deep ground, but it's been softened by rain, and in 1 you are basically committed to that far rail, and that's an issue for me. I may have him on side because it's one of those that if he wins, from me having spotted him at York, I can't let that happen. So he'll be on side, but with the way the draws panned out, I'm actually going to be in a better position with Sudden Flight, who I just think is a silly price. He should really be up with the favourites here. Just been running really well of late. That Racing League race, he won at Wolverhampton. He won that very, very well. And I just don't get why he is a double figure price. He shouldn't be. And he's in 20, which, according to the receivers and the guys I've had from the Gold Cup, that's where you want to be. I looked at the stats for all bigger field races over 5 and 6 at Ayr, and the picture's muddier than that. But, as I say, in recent years, we do seem to want to have been in those higher stalls, and Sudden Flight's got a lot of pace around him. He's right next to the favourite, I think. And yeah, I thought he was a cracking bet.
Thanks, Keith. That's Sudden Flight at 12-1 and Silky Wilkie at 18-1. And before we move on to Johnny, worth saying that Keith's form hacker is available online on the Racing Post website. Do check that out ahead of Saturday's action. Really good piece of content. Johnny, what have you got for us? No selection in the 225, but 2 others for us.
No, yeah, we're leaving the Silver Cup well alone. In the 115, the handicap over a mile, I like the Roger Varian horse called Cafiz. It only raced 4 times, and you still need to improve. But that race at Deauville last time, the winner, so El Shakab horse, has since gone and won a Group 1 race. The form, I was watching the race back earlier today, and he sort of a little bit keen early, and then he sort of ended up too far back, sort of kept on, but sort of just looked a bit babyish still. I think once he races with more racing, he's likely to improve plenty more, and I think he looks a good solid bet. There's much more to come there. And the 150, I'm going to go with King's Gambit yet again. James Doyle is coming here. Okay, he's got a book of rides, but he's here for King's Gambit. He could be on something at Newbury, but or he wouldn't have gone to Southall, I don't think. But he could be on something else somewhere, another horse somewhere else. He's here for King's Gambit. Bit disappointing at York last time, but before that he ran very well at Ascot at the Royal Meeting. Arguably should have won. The ground is a slight concern, but he's run well enough on soft before for me to not be too bothered. If you look at Champions Day last year, for example, and 11-2 or 4-1, whatever the horse is, I think it's far too big a price for him, and I can see him winning here.
Yep, so that is Cafes in the 115 and Jonny Pearson's old friend King's Gambit in the 150. We're going to have a short break, but after we do, we're going to turn our attentions to Newbury and Coolmore, the Tables' exciting new purchase. Okay, we are heading south. The next part of the show going to Newbury, where it is good to soft at the time of recording on Thursday afternoon. And the key race there is the 315 at Newbury. This is the Dubai duty-free Mill Reef Stakes. This year, of course, ran in memory of Geoff Lewis, with that great association with the great Mill Reef. But who's going to win the race on Saturday? Well, you're 2-1 favourite. As I touched on before the break, Into the Sky, Doreen Tabor's bought into the exciting 80-1 debut winner, Into the Sky. Kept with Jim Boyle, could be a huge horse for him going forward. Into the Sky is 2-1, having been supplemented at the start of the week. Godolphin taking him on, 85-40 is Words of Truth. Rock on Thunder at 100-30. Watch a Snoop at 10s, Rydale Frosty 14, Sands of Spain 16-1, Flying Comet and Gold Queen Kylie 25-1. Johnny, Into the Sky, yes or no?
Reluctant, yes. Firstly, I'd like to see local to me, Jim Boyle, do well and have success. He's probably too short a price now. Let's not beat about the bush. But you can't deny what he's shown in his debut is very impressive. The Godolphin horse got good form. Rock on Thunder arguably should be favourite here, following his second behind Life Plan at York last time out. Then you look at Flying Comet, a massive price. Given he was only length, Life Plan would have improved since the race at Thirsk. But he was second behind, near length behind Flight Plan. He's a huge price. I mean, he possibly is one to keep on side as well. But I think Into the Sky looks so impressive. He's at Newbury, and I can see him running another big race. I'd like to see him win. Yeah,
a bit of a local connection there. Ed, what's your selection as also? I mean, the great Mill Reef, and great to see Geoff Lewis honoured this weekend as well.
Yeah, the last Welshman to win the Derby, and I met him a couple of times, and him and his whole family were really lovely. So it's a lovely touch that we're racing in memory of Geoff Lewis. Geoff Lewis rode many years ago in the 60s and 70s, but I can let you know, James, this is going to make you feel very young. I went to this meeting 50 years ago. It was my birthday treat. And I remember backing a horse called the White Wonder. It was a proper white horse, lovely horse. He used to keep winning at Newbury. Anyway, I'm going back down memory lane again, aren't I? This particular race, I would love to see Into the Sky win. I mean, wouldn't it be a hell of a story for Jim Boyle? Just be great if he could win. And a 7.5 length maiden winner first time out at Newbury, you do not see that often. You don't, because they send their good horses to Newbury, the Lambourne trainers. There's only one race to go on. The fact that the connections have bought the horse suggests that, and they've got lots of good judges, they viewed that race as impressive. They kept him with Jim Boyle. I would just love to see him win and win well, and then maybe go into some of the Group 1s at the end of the season for Jim and run well there. So, yeah, heart and head Into the Sky, around about 5-2.
Two selections for the favourite Into the Sky. Keith, from a sort of analysis ratings perspective, Into the Sky, it was very, very impressive what he did on debut. It wasn't necessarily a fluke despite the massive odds.
Well, that's right. That's sort of, you do throw that 80-1 price into the mix a little bit in terms of how unexpected that win was. But the actual fact of him coming so far clear, and the fact it looked like quite a decent time as well, does mean you give him the benefit of the doubt. And, the thing is, would he be much shorter if he was trained by somebody that has a production line of these good 2-year-olds in this race? So I just... There's a very, very, very slim chance it was a fluke, but that's not in this price, I don't think. So I'm not madly interested at 5-2. As Johnny points out, I think Rock on Thunder should be the favourite here. The Mill Reef for me is one of these races I look back at recent winners and go, how is this still a Group 2? It's not been a good race for about 10 years. And because it comes at this time of year when the ground's starting to turn, and it's just not been a good race for quite a long time. Rock on Thunder's been second in the Gym Crack, well clear of everything else when second in the Gym Crack. And yes, maybe that race isn't producing the horses it used to either. But Kevin Ryan is pretty much going to run his best 2-year-old in it. Kevin Ryan loves running good horses at York. That's what he does. And this horse just looked like he was the best juvenile in the yard and coming well clear in second in the Gym Crack. And I think he should be favourite for what is, generally speaking, these days quite a poor Group 2. So, it's not a strong suggestion from me at all, but, in a market that's got into the sky 5-2-ish, Words of Truth 5-2-ish, Rock and Thunder 7-2-ish, I think you should flip that round. And that's about my only view in the race. It's not a strong one. But yeah, I think Rock on Thunder should be favourite instead of the ones that are.
Perfect. Let's move on to the 1:30 at Newbury. The other race we're looking at, the Dubai International Airport World Trophy Stakes. Another sprint, this one for older horses. And at the top of the betting is Rumstar at 3-1. Montasib, Sprint Cup hero from last year at 4s. Rage of Bambi win at the track earlier this season, 11-2. Shagran 7-1. First Instinct 8s. Balmoral Lady 9s. Kurdos 10s. Cover Up 12s. Queen All-Star 14s. Grand Grey 20-1, and the rank outsider at 40-1 is Habuba. Let's start with you again, Johnny. What's the verdict?
We're on the 1:30, aren't we? I'm probably not going to have a bet in the race, but Montasib does interest me. Fifth at Ascot and Champions Day last year, beat Kind of Blue before that, and beat Kinross the time before that. His form is very, very good. But we've not seen him since October last year. And I struggle to have a bet or something at sort of 5-1 and a horse I've not seen for the best part of 12 months. For all he has got a pretty good record fresh, if you look through it, he's won off a break, on more than one occasion now. And had he had a run this season, I would probably say he should be favourite. But he's not had a run. He's a 7-year-old now. And I'd rather sit it out. For all, I will be watching with a fair amount of interest.
Thanks for that, Johnny. Keith, we got plenty of our old friends involved in this sprint. It's plenty of familiar names. Which is the one who perhaps is interesting you most, though, on Saturday?
I just think the market's making it more open than it is. Rumstar should be favourite, and I wouldn't quibble with anybody who puts that horse forward. But Montasib, how can you trust him at this coming back after that long off? I remember William Haggis trying to do something similar in this race, or a race like this, trying to rush a horse ready for the Champion Series sprint at Ascot. You've got to have a lot of faith in him getting it right this time. And Montasib, he's not going to be fully fit. Shagran, got my doubts about the worth of that Beverly Bullet form, to be honest. He's a really likeable horse, Shagran, but he's a top handicapper listed horse, and I'm not interested at that price. Likewise, First Instinct, not particularly interested at the price, even though she's a likeable sprinter. I end up looking and thinking, how is Rage of Bambi not clear second favourite behind Rumstar? I was as guilty as anybody of thinking when this horse won the Hack that it was a fluke. I thought she was in the right part of the track. She returned 33-1. King's Gamble, who I think was coming off a break that day, travelled, and it looked like he went up in trip after that, didn't he? I thought it was a fluke. Then she obviously ran in Hungerford. 7's too far now. She then led the field for most of the way when she was 80-1 for the Sprint Cup. And once she'd done that in the Sprint Cup, you can only conclude that that's her level now. She is now low to mid 110s. with the fillies allowance, or the mare's allowance, as she is, because she's 5, that makes her borderline Group 1 class at this level. She will cope with 5 because she has that speed that she's shown recently. She evidently suits Newbury. She won the Hackwood. And I just do not see a reason for her to not be shorter than she currently is. Now, I'm not saying she's the likeliest winner. I do think that's Rumstar. But until Rage of Bambi is clear second favourite, she is value.
Rage of Bambi. A strong case there from Keith for the 11-2 shot. What's your verdict here, Ed?
Well, I'm happy that Keith won't blame anyone for tipping Rumstar, because I'm going to not only tip Rumstar, I think it's the best bet of the weekend. Mostly, Keith summed it up. There's plenty of opposition, but is there really? They turn up, but Rumstar's got the best form in the book. 5th in an unthought Group 1. Before that, favourite to win at the Curragh Group 2. And before that, won a Group 3, back in Group 3 company here. Stable in good form. Jonathan Portman's threatening to have the best ever season. Certainly his best for some years as well. And I'm a great believer in confidence when it comes to sport. And Rob Hornby is very confident at the moment. He's cracking in the winners. He's got a very good relationship with a number of trainers, including Andrew Balding this year. But Jonathan Portman's been his namesake for a long time. And he's cracking in the winners. He's got every confidence in this horse. I think Rumstar wins, and around about 3-1, I think is a good price as well. Oh, I should say, James, we're going industry top price on this race. So if you do have a bet on this race from 12 o'clock on Saturday, so you've got an hour and a half to do so, but you'll get the industry top price, best price anywhere in the village on any of the horses in the race.
Okay, let's move on to 2 remaining ITV races at Newbury. This is the 205, the Dubai Duty Free Autumn Cup, over 1.5 miles, and then the 240 Dubai Duty Free Handicap. Really competitive looking races over 1.25 miles. Let's start with you, Johnny. Is there anything taking your eye on either of those 2 races?
There is in the 240, the Dubai Duty Free Handicap. It's one, you can make a case for those towards ahead of the market, but I'm going the other direction. And I like a horse called Whisper for Alan King and Kieran Fallon. And, he ran at Goodwood last time, missed a break by a few lengths, finished a length and a half down. His run at Windsor in the summer prior to that, although on good to firm ground, was it was a very good win. Form worked out pretty well. And I don't see any way. I was coming here off the same mark. I don't see any way in which he's such a big price. I'd have him much shorter in the market, and there's an each way shout with you're going to get your 3 places by the looks of things. I think he's got a great chance. And going on from that, on Saturday at 5:40 at Gowran Park, horse who finished 1 place ahead of him that day called Akecha also runs, and I think I think she's got a great chance in the 5:40 at Gowran as well. So I think that piece of Goodwood form, the 4th and 5th there, I think they can both go and win on Saturday.
Bonus tip from Johnny. So that's Whisper, though, is the selection in the 205 at Newbury, spelt differently to the great jumper from years gone by. I'm sure we all remember him, Whisper. He almost beat Mike Byte in that famous race at Cheltenham where he almost threw it away. That was the original Whisper. But the Whisper Johnny hopes will be shouting from the rooftops is 14-1. Nothing in the 2 races for Keith. But Ed, you have got one for us. What do you like in the 205?
Yeah, the Autumn Cup, always a good handicap. There's a horse here that's really intriguing to me. It's a very, very lightly raced Majestic Warrior. This will only be the horse's 6th run. On only his 3rd turf run, he ran in the most competitive middle distance handicap of the year in probably Europe, and that's the Ebor, and finished only 5 lengths 5th or there. 5 lengths 7th or thereabouts. To some obviously well handicapped, improving horses, and also I noted that I think I even mentioned on this podcast that he had been very well backed for a series of weeks up to that. So James Tate is obviously knowing this horse is a good horse. This is another handicap. He can run off the same mark as he did in the Ebor of 98. This won't be as competitive as the Ebor. The distance is similar to the Ebor up in Trip, that race at Ebor. He had been running over 1 mile 2, 1 mile 4. And Hector Crouch is another one of those jockeys who is really confident. I spoke to Hector not long ago, and it's his best ever season. And he kind of put that down to he cracked on during the all-weather, and the momentum has just kept him going. But he is very confident at the moment. He won a really good race at York the other day from miles back and got up on the line to win by a nose. And I love confidence in sport. So, yeah, I'm going to go for Majestic Warrior. And I think it's a good price at the moment. I think he's an improver in the field. And I expect him to go really close.
He is 6-1. Now, Keith, you've not got anything in those two races on ITV, but you've got something for us elsewhere.
I do. I will be looking at Newmarket. They have split the 6 furlong handicap, and I am chuffed with that because they have split up the 2 horses I fancied in it into different divisions. So in the 245, I'll be backing Carbine Harvester, who I think might end up being favourite, but he's got big claims. I caught my eye a little bit when he ran at Ascot a fortnight ago. Finished 7th that day, but it was his first run since May, and he travelled well and just faded. The horse that won that race, Brosey, this horse beat him twice in the spring on the all-weather and ended up running in some really hot 3-year-old handicaps, like the one Berkshire Whisper won at Newcastle, and then also the one at the Guineas meeting, if you remember, the Invictus Gold one. These are really hot races, and he's been running in those. I think he's better than 0-85s, and he's running in that. He's a stronger fancy. I am not going to give Bob Malley in the 322 many more chances because I've got half a suspicion that he's a dog. However, he's a very talented one. And I thought he shaped like much the best horse at Doncaster last week at the Ledger meeting, where he finished really strongly and only went down by a neck. He definitely gets a chance. It's one of the weakest races he'll have contested for a while, this. So yeah, he's not a cliff horse, but he definitely gets a chance in a race like this, Bob Malley. I will also have a little look at the 4:15 at Chester. I suspect Rosenpoor is going to be really popular in stall 4, but I suspect to be favourite. So I might see if he's 5-1, he's probably the bet. However, I would also have a look for a horse called McLovin, who's immediately on his inside. And when you get a sense that a horse is going to be best mates with a track before they've run there, McLovin sits that for me. Is all his forms at like Lingfield in these sharp tracks like that over these sort of trips. And on the turf at Lingfield, his best form's been on softer ground. He's never run at Chester, but I think he's going to love it. And he's drawn in stall 3, and he might be a price. So basically, it'll be a price-dependent bet on one of those two in the 4:15 at Chester, that's McLovin and Rosenpoor.
Yep, and just remind us of the 2 at Newmarket. That was Combine Harvester or Combine Harvester even in the 320.
Combine Harvester in the 245 and Bob Malley in the 320.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Keith. And we will be getting all of our best bets for the weekend after this quick word from our sponsors.
Want betting on the horses to be anything but flat? With an app that impresses every time out. You're on. Want to watch live streaming of races in the UK, Ireland and around the globe? And get a chance to win even bigger with 3 Uniboosts every day on any horses you want. Unibet. You're on.
Okay, it is that final part of the show where we look at all the races and pull out our very best bets. Jonny Pearson, kick us off. The Saturday nap is?
It's going to be 150 at Ayr, and we're going to stick with our old friend King's Gambit to hopefully get the job done this time around.
King's Gambit at Newbury. Ed, what are you going for?
Yeah, going for Rum Star in the 130 at Newbury. Good class horse, dropped back to grade 3. And also, James, keep an eye out on Andrew Balding horses at Chester. He's going for the Bobby McAlpine Trophy. He's got 6 out of 7 runners in. I expect him to have 1 or 2 winners on Saturday at Chester.
One to watch there. I'm going to go for Into the Sky in the Mill Reef. We've touched on this horse during the show. I think he was so impressive first time out, and I'm expecting him to prove a really smart prospect for Jim Boyle. And Keith, finish us off, and that, please.
I think it's going to be Sudden Flight in the Silver Cup, 225 at Ayr. He's 1 stall away from the favourite and 4 times the price. It's a wrong price.
There we go. Thank you very much to our panellists. That's Keith Melrose, Jonny Pearson and Ed Nicholson. And to you for watching along. Do make sure to rate, review and subscribe if you are a fan of the podcast. And of course, Join us again at 7 o'clock next Thursday, where we've got a double Group 1 card from Newmarket, as well as unpicking the Cambridgeshire. Should be straightforward, guys, shouldn't it? Anyway, we shall find out next week who we like for that. But very best of luck this weekend. Goodbye. And of course, gamble responsibly.